What's up, ladies and gentlemen, how's it going? It's Dan here from Cryonoir, and we are back with my game making journey. This is just a kind of series that I actually used to launch this channel, which just sort of documented all the process I went through in sort of learning to make games in Game Maker and how I'd come to that. After that, I sort of then went over onto doing devlogs for games that I was building rather than doing my sort of journey, as it were. But due to recent sort of changes and things that have happened, which were sort of laid out in my previous devlog, I'm now sort of, I would say I'm back on the journey, as it were, because I'm now learning a new engine and things like that. So this episode is going to be basically, so certainly the next couple of episodes anyway, are going to be kind of a recap of what happened during the devlog days, purely and simply because a lot of my subscribers will have come on towards the back end of that. And also it's good that I kind of want my game making journey to be kind of just a complete dialogue from sort of start to end, as it were. So we're just kind of going to go back over some of that and kind of highlight it. So if you want more info about what's happening in this episode, then you can go back and watch all of the devlogs and sort of see it in more in depth, where I talk about exactly what I'm doing each week and everything like that. Otherwise, this will just be like a nice little entertaining kind of trip down memory lane, as it were. So away we go. After completing Westwick and all the other game making tutorials I'd done previously, I felt I had enough of an understanding of the game engine that I could strike out on my own. I set myself a goal of having a complete game within 6 months, which I then tried to ship for general release. First, I had to decide what kind of game I wanted to make. As I always do when I'm stuck for ideas and inspiration, I hit YouTube and began research. I checked out other small indie developers to see what they were making and see what had been selling well and what was due for release in the next 12 months. This was to get an idea of what current market trends were, with a view to try and predict what would be the next big trend in independent game development. And then I saw this video, this lighting engine in Game Maker, and I was like, fuck, that looks awesome, I'm gonna do that. I envisaged a sci-fi horror top-down shooter, kind of like Alien Breed for the Amiga, only with twin-stick shooter mechanics and a darker atmosphere. The player would have to find their way around a space station, one area at a time, with each level in total darkness, using nothing but the torch for light. The goal would be to bring power back to the station one level at a time. Once power was restored, the lights would come back on, and the automatic doors for the next level would then work. In the darkness, the player would encounter a few small enemies wandering around. However, once the lights were turned back on, all hell would break loose, with hundreds of enemies piling in. So many so that the player would be completely overwhelmed. That way, the player would then have to learn each level in the dark, and then remember their way back out once the lights were back on and they were being chased. Sweet! I got to work prototyping and very quickly got a player in a makeshift room that could move around, rotate and fire in the direction of the mouse, with a few bugs. Next up, the game needed some collision and some placeholder enemy sprites to kill. I then imported a tile sheet that I'd been working on to make the game look a little less jank, and began working on some animations for the airlock doors at the end of each level. Some basic enemy AI was next on the cards, so I set up a wander state for the enemies, an alert state, and then a chase state so that they would then chase after the player. A bit of sprite work later to change them from circles into a bug type thing, and a blue splatter on the ground once they were killed. And the game was really starting to take shape. With lighting being a massive component of the game, I figured it was time to get that sorted so I could work on setting up the two states for each level, either lit or unlit. I started by trying to import the lighting engine that had initially inspired me to make this game. After a week of trying to import it into the game, I'd gotten absolutely nowhere. Game Maker would just throw up error after error, most of which I'd never come across before and meant absolutely nothing to me. I then started to look for other solutions online, and I managed to find two different approaches to the problem that both provided half of the desired effect. I thought maybe I could merge the two different systems to create one unified look that would work just as well as the original version. After another week's worth of work, I couldn't seem to get either of these approaches working either. After 2 lost weeks, I decided to hit the Game Maker marketplace and see if there was any way I could just buy a lighting engine that would then just do the job for me rather than have me build one for myself. This too provided fruitless, so I reached out to a few indie friends who worked with Game Maker Studios, all of whom said the lighting was quite a tricky thing to deal with in Game Maker. It was at this point I started chatting quite often to a guy called Josh who I'd met through my channel. and he floated the idea of us working together on a project. At the time, I was far too focused on trying to get this project working and off the ground. I then went back to the game with the intent that I would just try using static lights to see if that could give a good enough effect. Whilst I got this in and working as intended, it just wasn't good enough. Without the dynamic shadows moving in relation to the player's torch, the whole mood of the game was just lost, and I had no idea where to proceed from there. After much discussion with Josh, we decided that working together would be something that we both wanted to do, but that we should start work on 2 projects at a time. Looking back at this, it seems like a really ballsy and rather stupid approach, but at the time we were completely confident that this would work. We'd spend 1 week on one game, 1 week on the next game, and then a 3rd week polishing what we'd done in the previous 2 weeks, with week 4 being set aside for me to focus on doing a bigger video for the channel. Now this approach did work out for a little while, but that's a story for another episode. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of my game making journey. There's plenty that lead up to this, so check those out. I've also done some sort of more professional videos by, through my love letter videos to sort of Sega Mega Drive and the Amiga. There's lots of other content on this channel, so if you did like this video, check it out. Give me a thumbs up and a subscribe, and hit me with a comment down below. And I will see you next time for another episode of my game making journey. Thank you very much. Take it easy. Bye bye.